Hello. I am really happy to be here today. Would you please imagine with me two students named Ali and Omar? They are different students with different passions and interests. If they were living in 1960 and attending school together, it would be very likely that their lives would be extremely similar. Their transportation to school, the food they ate, and the way they were taught. Now let's consider Ali and Omar living today attending school. Either of them could choose the Land Cruiser or the Yukon. They could choose video games or falconry as hobbies. At lunch, they can choose the golden delicious apple from Italy or the red delicious apple from Washington State. However, what are their choices for education? How do you think Ali and Omar approached their classrooms? Well, it turns out that it depends on their grade level. This graph shows the engagement level of students in school from grade 5 to grade 12. Wouldn't it be amazing? Wouldn't it be amazing if all classrooms could maintain the engagement level of 5th graders? Why do students enter into their educational paths excited to learn, but by the end of it, they are actively engaged, rebelling against it? What causes this lack of engagement in the classroom? Now let's take a look at the progression of the classroom from 1960 to present day. Can you remember Ali and Omar that you imagined? Would their classroom look something similar to this? Probably. Do you think this classroom will change over time with the development of 21st century learning skills? Well, this is a classroom in 2007. Not much has changed. The teacher is lecturing and the students are listening. Finally, a classroom in 2017. Things are bound to change. Well, even with technology, the classroom is still set up like it was in the past. The classroom is meant to prepare us for the world of work, for life skills, and for contributing to society. While our lives have been improved by the advances in transportation, food, leisure activities, and the workplace, the classroom has remained relatively unchanged. The wise leader of this country, His Highness Sheikh Tamim, said in his 44th ordinary session, "I would like to address the Qatari youth. Qatar cannot be built without you. It cannot be built on limited number of professions pursued by all. Qatari youth must turn to all specialties and take their homeland into account when taking these decisions. As educators, we want all children to pursue their careers of their dreams." Let's compare some similarities between our school system and this automotive factory. All students enter the system the same, and they're expected to leave the same. No variability allowed. In fact, in this system, in certain places, all students are expected to leave and pursue the same profession. This model is great for the past. However, times have changed. We need to change too. At a previous TEDx talk, there was a speaker named Ed Hidalgo who penned the question, how can a student aspire to a career that they don't know exists? As educators, we want students to be engaged in their learning, pursue a future that they deem desirable with support, and show individuality. Could we design a school that looks like this automotive factory? It is still built to scale and sustainable. And the level of personalization is immense. In this school, personal interests, values, passions would be taken into consideration. Variability would be embraced, and outcomes would be different. In this model, I would be confident that the Ali and Omar that we imagined would be engaged in their learning. I was fortunate enough to be at Qatar Foundation and allowed to innovate and create an atmosphere of student engagement. Due to the foresight of Qatar Foundation leaders, we developed a learning model that reflects the requirements of a 21st century learner. The aim was to unlock human potential by giving choice, voice, and personalization for their education. The program is called Prime. Personalizing education isn't allowing a student to do whatever they want, but it is allowing discovery of individual passions, giving agency to a student to explore those passions, and perhaps, most importantly, expecting an impact in their world today. All existing and future schools can personalize education by following a framework of action. One example of a framework was developed by Leap Innovations. This framework can guide educators to successfully implement the personalization method, and I want to share how a program right here in Qatar Foundation has used this framework to successfully develop a model that engages students in the later portions of their career in high school. The first component is learner connected. Learning goes beyond the classroom and connects to families, communities, and the world. In order to be learner connected, we must look outside the classroom walls. Studies have shown that young people prefer to learn outside the classroom. What if this was the classroom? Ali and Omar will be allowed to pursue real-life passions in partnership with the community and the world at large. As well as connecting the classroom to the outside world, it is important that our students also connect what they're learning inside the classroom to habits of success. These habits will propel students to reflect on their learning, approach challenges with confidence, and resolve conflicts effectively. In the end, isn't one goal of a school to prepare students to be contributors to society and have soft skills necessary for the workforce? If that is a goal, then wouldn't it be a good idea to intentionally teach these skills in the context of education? To be learner demonstrated, we must enable learners to progress at their own pace based on demonstrated competencies. If you or I was going to jump out of a plane, who would you choose to pack your parachute? You have to choose Ali or Omar. Omar, at the beginning of his class, was packing his chute at an 85% efficiency rate. By the end of class, he made no growth, but he was still packing it at 85%. So in traditional grading, he would have gotten a B in the class. It's pretty good. On the other hand, Ali was failing at the beginning and showed a steady engagement in his learning and progressed and mastered the skill. If you had to choose, would you base it on average over time, or would you base it on mastery of the skill? I know who I would choose. We need to be able to track students' academic progression through multiple years. This can be done with technology. Slate is a program that allows teachers to assess students based on skills and competencies. The ratings are all based on grade level standards that have been normalized for achievement. This data is then stored and shared with current teachers and future teachers to understand where a student is currently progressing. With this tool, I have personally witnessed students exceed their expected yearly growth. To be learner-focused, we must provide data to students and parents to allow them to make changes in behaviors and academic practices. We want students to grow. That is the main goal. This data will help students assess their own level over time and show their growth based on each competency. With technology, we can give students and parents intentional data that can influence behaviors and alter futures. One day, a student can have a bad day at school, and the next, they're actively engaged in their learning. But the data is stored for future conversations and learning opportunities. To be learner-led, we must trust our students to take ownership of their learning. As an educator, it is important to develop rigorous content and curriculum for the students to learn. At the same time, it is important to trust students to lead their own progression with support. This can be done within the learning cycle. As a Westerner in a Muslim country, I have been asked on many occasions how my students live their Islamic values. Instead of giving them the answer, I decided to give that question back to my students. They made meaning of this question and investigated, how do I live my Islamic values? Then they investigated how others live their Islamic values. After sufficient investigation into this topic, they then created a product that was put on public display where other Westerners can see how students here in Qatar live their Islamic values. These students showed ownership in their learning, grew in their Islamic convictions, and provided a service to the community. This is another example of students excelling at personalized learning. These students are my friends. The traditional system did not work for these students. They were expected to graduate and move on to college. However, they were disengaged in the classroom. They thought it was boring. After being accepted into the Prime program, they pursued a business competition where they won the most innovative award for a high school. These students connected to their community by developing an app to help local grocery owners provide services to customers. They demonstrated a high level of achievement in the app they created, and they led the entire process. The teacher was merely a partner in this venture. I am proud of those students for showing habits of success and taking ownership of their learning. Education is all about people and relationships. I was influenced by one student long ago, Keaton Flanagan, who told me, I dream of an education system that allows me to pursue my passion of motivational speaking. Together, if we can build a school system that has passions, agency, and high expectations that are combined with a fundamental sound framework, then we together can allow Ali, Omar, and all of our children to be prepared for the futures they want and the futures that they deserve. By the way, Qatar deserves the best. Thank you.